We had several pretty interesting entries. We got them down to 2. All were sort of curious about form and the modernist legacy and where to take it from there, if you could take it anywhere. Anna Kathenka and Alice Willits, are they here? Produced something called Poem Stein 1, which I had to take notes about in order to kind of describe it here. It's an intriguing experiment with what they call fractal poetics. They've made a piece which is hard to figure out, but quite a lot of fun. It's a design for the simulation of poetry, which actually turns into a poem. The poem itself mimics a lab protocol for DNA extraction. And then suddenly a riotous hunt is on for viable poetry plasmid DNA. Yeah. And as the work moves along, small self-similar poetic creatures evolve in the lab. They're all derived from strands or little bites of Gertrude Stein from Tender Buttons. And eventually a final plasmid DNA sample for a fractal poem is discovered. It's 9 words in all, but I must actually show you some of the diagrams that form part of the text. And the 9 words in question are hope, mind, green, just, much, past, time, perhaps, thing. So I think this is what was going on. And I don't know much about DNA, and I know even less about fractals, but it's an adventurous and imaginative and witty piece. Yeah, so please come up and...
Hello. Thank you, Jeremy. Well, this is the Kathenka-Willits experiment in fractal poetics. Thank you. Fractals are self-similar shapes that recur in ever smaller versions of themselves with a balance of order and variability.
You know, like a cauliflower.
The pleasure that humans feel when they see fractals in nature is of interest to us as poets.
So we've adapted a laboratory protocol used in plasmid DNA extraction as a method for generating genetic building blocks for the creation of a large-scale fractal poem.
Simply. We're going to read you an extract from the poetic essay we submitted to the Ivan Juritz Prize that describes the experience of following our experimental protocol.
So we're going to read you step 2 of the 4 steps in the process that we undertook.
Step 2, cell lysis.
Select the 2 cultures from the same lyric cell. Combine the cultures in a shared Google Drive document. Add 2 poets mixing and disrupting the text simultaneously. Do not allow lysis reaction to proceed for more than 5 minutes. Ensure that all the verse cultures have been well combined. The verse should look viscous and snotty. Repeat for each culture.
You will now have 5 times 500-word lysate verses.
Modesty.
Honor.
Self.
Here is a take.
Running amok.
In dreams.
Flick the switch.
Me in mine.
Nerve water.
Just difficult, swell.
The brain shores on each lip.
Abstract, like a sense of spreading
out.
She expected nonsense, but the lysate is beautiful.
How did that happen?
Alchemy.
An energetic likeness is milk, or a gift of a kitten, or a waiting, or a space to do.
Something page, or a canvas.
There might be many theories.
Maybe every tiredness. Maybe energetic attention, whether worry.
Quickly and if.
There are people who think that Margaret Atwood's
be habitual coriander.
It's alive.
Doers of compassion.
Salt.
Coconut milk.
Water.
Equals leave out ego.
Strange love.
Bewitching patterns.
Me to you.
Pizza.
Is not reciprocated.
Okay.
That's enough of that.
She wonders about energy.
Is poetry the lightning or the conductor?
Sluice out the accumulated data loss by night.
Wrist is leading down and right back up the other arm.
Feminine action.
The feeling of knowing what is coming.
Somebody crying.
The feeling of holding the middle.
Is difficult.
Line breaking is sailing.
Past synaptic thinking.
Smoosh it all together, what you got?
Thought is only that shape because of the rocks.
The page is a rock.
Educated and resumed.
What is a carrot?
Pause.
But a pleasant time to take a moment.
This is not tardy.
But it is great and allowed to exist.
Or to officialize, renew, or to
bring into being.
Do we move in behind our faces?
Or to make something.
She wonders whether emotions will always be stirred, even if the language is accidental.
Or whether there is something profoundly meaningful happening in this experiment.
A wondrous good thing, the wrist.
To leave.
In the middle of a shrinking isolation of ice.
Man is leaving.
The feeling of being at altitude.
Wrist.
Out into the Arctic, so purest oxygen fixes in
my myoglobin for the sounding dive of my life.
There is a nice thing.
On the tundra.
The foot, or the philosophy.
Where going home is a hope feeling.
She no longer feels like a shabby curate in a room full of dukes.
Poetry slimming tyrants. Here is brisket in stockings.
Knead and fresh pasta, and to be brought back into place, line breaks.
A steel resolve forces line breaks.
How might Mabel be?
Here is masculine, holding not wrist, but something to leave.
A violent peace that is leading.
In the day or the biscuit.
What is extra yellow?
A surprise in the darkest of places.
She's beginning to understand that this experiment is taking her poetic process.
And stretching it out into all its component parts.
Poetry is a voice of liberation cheese.
Intermittent games.
A lady.
Prose is difficult.
Mabel might be articulate insight.
In small words.
That camouflage cellulite.
Finality.
Panties. Skinny titanian moths are searching all over the world.
For yellow lunch breaks.
Would she recognise a fractal component of poetry?
A bit of over-processed you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We just wanted to say the end result. I mean, Jeremy's already said this, but the end result of the experiment are the 9 words, which we'll be taking forward to use as building blocks for growing fractal poems.
And to take this project into its next stage, we're inviting 20 poets to write into these 9 words with a view to creating an interactive poem on a digital platform. Should we say that?
This is an investigative experiment in which we need the input of poets and digital creatives and virtual reality designers and funding bodies and venues and so on.
But we'd really love to hear from individuals and organisations that might be able to help us with coding digital poems, providing financial support on the ongoing development of the project, and also giving us platforms from which to share our findings with a wider audience.
Collaborating on this project is one of the most exciting things either of us has ever done. So we're really looking forward to the next stage in the discoveries. Thank you.
Thank you.